Hello, this is Father Louis SCURTI with Friends of the Word, and we are at the Italian Museum on Mulberry Street in Little Italy. My guest is Dr. Joseph SCELZA.
Yes, thank you, Father. I appreciate you being here today, and thank you for all the things that you do.
You're quite welcome, and it's a joy being here. About 2 years ago, we were walking around Little Italy, and we came upon this building. It was closed. I said, we got to come back here. It's an Italian museum. I never heard about it. Tell me what the history of the Italian museum is.
Well, first of all, this is the place to be if it's an Italian museum in New York.
Good.
Because Mulberry Street was and still is the Italian section in New York City, where thousands and thousands of Italians came through New York Harbor. Many of them settled right here in lower Manhattan and Little Italy. Of course, that was around the turn of the century, between 1880 and 1920.
Mm-hmm.
But the way the museum got started was I was dean of the John D. Calandra Italian American Institute at the City University of New York in 1998. And a friend of mine who was the distinguished professor of Italian American Studies, who we had just hired, Philip Canestraro, had seen an exhibit at the Museum of the City of New York.
Yes.
And
nice, beautiful museum.
And the museum at the Museum of the City of New York was on the Irish of New York. So he comes into my office and he says,
that was the exhibit, or that was the whole museum?
There was a whole exhibit on that.
Okay.
So he said to me, Joe, we got to do something for the Italians. I'm a member he's a member of the New York Historical Society. He said, I'm going to go there. I want to talk to them. So I says, go ahead, go talk to them. Maybe they'll do something. Sure enough, a week later, he comes back to me and says, but they want to talk to you. I says, really?
Now, at that point, what was your role?
I was the dean of the Calandra Institute at City University, which I was very instrumental in starting also.
And nothing to do with a museum?
No.
Good.
So
okay.
we go to the Historical Society, and that's a good point that you make. Go to the Historical Society, and Phil lays out this whole plan from Columbus to today, and everything that he wants to see in the exhibit. And I'm listening, and I'm impressed. He goes on for about an hour. He's lecturing for about an hour. So I'm listening to him, and I'm almost clapping at the end of it. But I'm ready to get up and say, good, great, But the president of the Historical Society at that time was Betsy Gottbaum.
Oh yeah, another name.
Victor Gottbaum's the former labor leader, the wife of him. And she turns to me, not to him, and I'm wondering why. She says to me, yeah, but you got to give me $250,000 to come in here and do it. Father Lou, I had never raised $250,000 before in my life.
Yeah.
But I'm from the Bronx, not from Manhattan, and Phil was from the Bronx also. So I wasn't about to say to Betsy Gottbaum that I can't do it. So I says, no problem.
Sure, why not?
So we walk outside after we finish, and Phil's going, oh, Joe, that's great. You can do that. I says, I haven't got a blankety-blank idea how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it.
That's great. Great.
And, you challenge me, and I usually rise to the occasion. So there's been a number of other things in my life that I've done besides that's been the case of. But don't need to go about that today. So anyway, I go about raising the money. And sure enough, I raised
for an exhibit at the
New York
Historical,
which is the oldest museum in New York City.
Yeah.
I mean, it was founded by Alexander Hamilton,
wow,
so that's a big deal.
Yeah.
So I'm all ready, and the exhibit's supposed to take place for October of 1999. In June of 1999, I'm $75,000 short. Not really, because the New York State Senate, who was giving me $75,000, had not passed their budget yet. So I knew they were going to pass it during the summer, but Betsy comes to me and says, if you don't give me the money now, we can't do the exhibit. So sure enough, I reached out to a friend of ours, a member of the Pope family, Generoso Pope.
Yeah.
Paul David Pope, the grandson. And he was the son of Gene Pope, the founder of the National Enquirer. So Paul says to me, no problem. He writes a check for $75,000. And now Betsy Gottbaum's got to do this exhibit, which she didn't think she could do.
Yeah.
Thought she was going to keep the rest of the money, I believe. without doing the exhibit. After the exhibit opened, she's claiming that she did everything, of course, which is nothing unusual. But you know what? Success has 1,000 fathers and mothers.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
failure has none. So exactly. So the exhibit opened on Columbus Day, 1999. Nobody expected to be as successful as it was. 40,000 people came to see it within 2 months.
Great advertisements.
Yes.
Wonderful.
And I was so proud because we had the poster of the immigrants, which I have on the bookcase. Here's the book. I'll bring it over to you. This was the book.
That's great.
Yeah. This poster was on Central Park West, right on the Historical Society.
That's great.
The Italians on Central Park West. How wonderful is that? So I was thrilled, and you know, we went to the exhibit, and then of course we had to close it at the end of the 2 months. But it was so successful. We wanted to talk, we went to the consulate to talk about it, and people were telling us we want a permanent exhibit. They were thinking of a permanent exhibit. What's a permanent exhibit? Permanent exhibit is a museum. So with a little prodding from my friend in New Orleans, Joseph Maselli, who had started a museum down there, I started to explore how you go about becoming a museum in New York. I didn't want to just be a storefront. I didn't want to be something that wasn't authentic, it wasn't permanent. So I really investigated it, and I found out I'm an educator through the New York State Education Department and a professor. You have to file, and you have to go through a series of steps in order to become a legitimate museum in New York. Well, I did that. So in 2001, on June 12, 2001, we become the first licensed Italian-American museum in New York.
2001, recent.
In New York and in the United States of America.
Really, the first?
The first. We didn't have a home.
I was going to say, what was the location?
The home was the Calandra Institute at the time, which was part of Queens College, but we had offices on 43rd Street.
Okay.
On the 17th floor. So I created a room, small, it wasn't a huge room, you know, but I created a room that we would start to do exhibits. And we did a lot of exhibits there. But I knew that we needed a permanent space.
Right.
And to me, the only permanent space meant that you had to go back to where the roots came from. And if it's not in Italy, it's Mulberry Street.
It's Mulberry Street, yeah.
It's Mulberry Street.
Yeah.
So I was looking for a place until finally we got a phone call telling us that Jerome Stabile III, who owned this property on the corner of Grand and Mulberry Street, was looking to sell it. Now, he wasn't going to sell it cheap, even though it was a museum, but he was willing to sell it. So we put an option on it. He wanted $9.5 million for it, and that's what we ended up paying. It took me 2 years to raise the down payment. And between myself and 3 other gentlemen, we put up the down payment.
Wow.
Yeah, from our own personal resources. So we
It's
put up
quite a risk.
You know what?
And
what I learned a long time ago, if you want to do something, you have to put your own skin in the game.
Good.
And then you get other people to follow.
Good.
Because
it's credible then.
That's right. Yeah. Because you're putting your own resources at risk.
Right.
You know, but I really believed in this project. And sure enough, we were able to purchase the property. Had a lot of problems with the buildings. They were decrepit. You know, they had water problems. We had electrical problems. I mean, the original building was gas. You know,
Right.
Gas lamp, not even electricity. So everything was jerry-rigged.
Was this that location?
This is the location. So it was jerry-rigged. So we knew that we really couldn't maintain that building.
No.
And to gut it would cost more than to rebuild it. So, and also we still had a big mortgage, you know. So, and we wanted to arrest that mortgage. So we found a partner who was willing to take build the space above us and build condominiums. We give him the condominiums, and he built out the space back for us, and it's ours without any mortgage.
Right.
So we were able to do that in 2018.
But you were busy doing that. I mean, you say it like it's simple. You had to do a lot of background work to get that conversation going.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I had to find a lot of followers,
Yeah.
people who believed in
Who
the
trust?
mission.
Yeah, believed and trusted.
I have a
Yeah.
great board, a group of gentlemen and ladies that really, really, really are dedicated to making this happen and continue to do so. So that
Good.
when because museums, you know, they're not for profits. They never have a lot of
Yeah,
money.
yeah.
You know, it's like the church.
That's true.
You know, we're
Always asking.
always asking for money because you can't do it without.
Right.
You can't, as my friend, like I said, Joe Maselli in New Orleans used to say to me, you can't get funny, Joe, without money. So you have to have the money in order to be able to do whatever you want
È
to do.
vero, that's funny. That's
So you always
true.
have to raise it. Fortunately, my son was the architect of the interior and the exterior of the building,
God bless you.
and
That's
he
fantastic. Where did he
yeah,
study?
Harvard,
Oh, good.
Harvard, and then he went. Then he's now a professor at Pratt,
Okay.
full,
Oh, good,
full
good.
professor at Pratt of architecture, and his wife is a landscape architect. So he designed the whole project and oversaw the building that his name is Jonathan, same as my last name is mine, SCELZA. So he did a wonderful job. People have come here. As a matter of fact, without being too gratuitous, the the, the director of the museum in Genoa came, and he said to me, "This is like a baby Guggenheim."
Wow.
Because of
Beautiful.
the structure itself, how beautiful it looks.
The lines,
Yeah,
the
it's
atmosphere.
very different. It's
Beautiful.
people. It's not. We show the history, but we show it in a modern museum way because I didn't want us to wanted us to have a foot in the past, but also be in the present, and to show people that we're not just the old school people. We know what we're doing.
Yes. That's important.
We put it together, and we've mounted some great exhibits since we started. I mean, we had some before, but since we've opened the museum, which is just about 2 years now, we've had exhibits here. We had exhibit on Giuseppe di Verrazzano for the 500th anniversary.
Sure.
Which was great. We also have on, and I'll show them to you later, the Menteo puppets, which were made here on Mulberry Street. When I did the exhibit at the New York Historical Society, I met Mike Menteo, who was the grandson of Agrippino Menteo. Agrippino had a workshop on 109.
And that's such a Sicilian name,
Yeah.
Agrippino.
Had a workshop on Mulberry Street, and he was an electrician by day, and by night he was a puppeteer. And he made all these puppets himself. We have 34 of them on display.
Good. When we see that later, I want you to explain the history of
Sure.
puppeteers to our guests from Sicily.
I just came back from Sicily. I was in Syracuse, where I met some of the puppeteers there as
Oh.
well, which was great. And we intend to have a relationship with them
Good.
as we go forward to bring more and more of that culture back. Because I don't want our culture to be depressed or put aside
Or lost.
as we go forward. And it's not just Leonardo, which we'll do exhibits on that too, of course, but it's not just the greats.
Right.
It's the social culture, the people's culture that really matters.
And that's what we're going to pick up on at our next interview. Thank you very much. This has been wonderful. You got a little taste of this building and the history of it from Dr. SCELZA. And we're going to be back and we're going to see various aspects of this museum and shows that we've had here. This has been Father Louis SCURTI at Friends of the Word. We ask you to contact us. And what is your
email address?
email?
www.italianamericanmuseum.org or info@italianamericanmuseum.org. That'll get right to us.
And we're located at
151 Mulberry Street in the heart of Little Italy.
Take an Uber because you can't park here. God bless you, and tune in for our next chapter of the Italian Museum, Mulberry Street, NYC. God bless you.